So, welcome back to the channel, guys. Now, I've actually got a new mic for today's video, so that's why I may sound a little bit more angelic than usual. But today we're going to be talking over the fat differences in men versus women. Now, what are the obvious differences in... Oh, there goes my phone. What are the obvious differences in fat storages between men and women? Today we're going to delve into some of the facts of what makes us men different to the lovely females, the science and the fiction, and can we really spot reduced fat? Now, the most obvious differences when we look at the female and the male anatomy are going to be with males that we tend to hold it in our chest. We have kind of like back boobs, we have front chest, man boobs, we have the midsection, which often looks a little bit more flabby. We have a beer belly, sometimes have love handles, bit of lower back fat. And then when we look at the female anatomy, often females generally tend to hold fat more around the arms, the muffin top, the thighs, the calves, the bum, and what ladies often like to refer as, not me, is the underbutt. So women are genetically engineered to carry more fat on their bodies than men. The body fat percentage of a healthy, active female is 18 to 20%, whereas the figure for males is 10 to 15%. This is because physiologically, females' bodies naturally like to prepare to nourish a growing baby, i.e. give birth, and fat reserves help to do that. Now, as a guy, first off, I'm massively thankful for the fact that I don't have to push out a small human being. So hats off to the ladies who undertake this endeavour on our behalf, but we will go into this later on in more detail. Now, although females are more likely to develop subcutaneous fat, men are prone to storing visceral fat, the stuff that coats your internal organs, so it can obviously be a little bit more dangerous. This tendency to store visceral fat, along with less efficient fat burn than women, means that men are actually more prone to fat-related illnesses and conditions like heart disease and diabetes. These two differences are due to the binding to both testosterone and estrogen within the body fat. So even a fit and healthy body fat percentage, and for fit individuals, you will still see body fat stored in different areas. And this is where we are all different. So men at healthy body fat, the stomach is sometimes more pronounced. Even in myself, I often hold body fat in my lower stomach and more often my lower back. And it's just something, even if I get mega diced, I still hold body fat through my lower back area. Now, women at a healthy, lean body fat will still hold fat around the glutes, around the lower legs, and often, because it's subcutaneous body fat, get that pimpled kind of fat looking right along the skin. Now, there's nothing wrong with this. Obviously, a lot of females will recall it is known as cellulite, and there's absolutely nothing wrong with it. It's a natural occurrence. It's just something that, and a way that the body holds fat in different ways. Now, the main concepts that I want to discuss are to do with diet, training, and sleep. Literally, they do everything together. So the misconceptions sometimes that women should be doing just cardio and males should be lifting weights. Now, we all should know by now that this is just complete bullshit. Now, when me and Lucy go into fat loss phases, for example, it's actually men who are required to do more cardio, and this is always the case with me. I always have to do a little bit more cardio, and she tends to do a lot of lifting, and that's how it works. Don't get caught up with the old school, outdated social norms that lifting lends to men and the treadmill is the place for the woman. This is as outdated as that men are breadwinners and women are to stay at home and wash the dishes. It's just not the case anymore. So when we're looking at the way that males and females store body fat, so we're looking at visceral fat versus subcutaneous fat. Visceral fat, like I was saying before, is the fat that tends to sit on the abdomen and impedes on the internal organs, including the liver, the stomach, the intestines, and so on. It can also build up in the arteries, whereas subcutaneous fat is underneath the skin and gives that dimpling look, as I talked before, as it's only one layer down under the skin. Women and men will both have this, but the percentages of those will differ from male to females, which is often why we get a different look in the physique. Now, why this happens is due to testosterone and estrogen. So visceral fat is more androgenic and has more receptors which bind to testosterone that promotes the visceral fat, and so we carry that pot belly or that beer belly that the guys will often refer to, whereas females have more subcutaneous fat due to estrogen, as it enhances the deposition of this fat type, and this gives us the reason to why we store it in specific areas based on gender. Now, when we're looking at the physiological differences, for example, body composition and muscle mass, this often differs due to testosterone, and women have about 2/3 of the muscle mass of men and can sometimes have up to twice the body fat. Females also tend to not have an even distribution of muscle due to most of the muscle mass being in the lower body. And due to these factors, I think this is where the misconception comes from, that women don't have the ability to build muscle or build as much muscle as men do anyway. So this is due to the starting point of having less muscle, which of course is going to impact the rate and ability to progressively overload. A sort of conclusion would be to say that the main differences are necessarily due to sex differences, but more due to the amount of muscle mass and body fat that we have to start with. So I'm going to delve a little bit into hormones and looking at the female hormone to start with. So firstly, females have 9 times more estrogen than males, and it's good for muscular repair and recovery from more work and training volume. So basically, women should do more than men in the gym. So basically, when your other half's like, I'm off and going home now, I've finished a workout, females generally will have to spend a little bit more time in the gym to burn as many calories or try and progressively overload like males do. And it's generally because females don't fatigue as much as men. Now, females have a greater portion of type 1 muscle fibers. So females are generally better at higher reps, more reps at a given intensity, and shorter rest periods for these reasons. And when we look at upper versus lower, 50% strength of men in upper in correlation to 6% of the strength of men in lower body. So they're the comparisons when we can look at males compared to females and where their strengths lie in regard to the composition. Now, the menstrual cycle means that women will have to change their training intensity during the luteal phase and sometimes increase calories due to the amount of energy expenditure in this phase being higher than usual. Just another thing that women have to combat, or more so, work alongside when looking to achieve fat loss or build muscle that guys don't have to contemplate. Women can burn more calories due to their endurance benefits. So this means, yes, females will have to work out for longer, like discussed before, and sometimes harder to shift on body fat. So therefore, they should maximize volume and work to the specific body type's strength. Now, all this means is that you can get a better understanding of the training you can be doing as a female to get the most out of fat loss, i.e. lift heavy, do some cardio to increase energy expenditure, but most of all, get a grip on the diet side of things. Now, looking at the males and the male body, we generally have 4 times the amount of testosterone that females have. We are more type 2 dominant in regards to muscle fibers and have great tendency for fast and explosive movements, but burn out a lot quicker than the female counterpart will do during training for this reason. Now, guys, if heavier, will generally burn more calories. So if you're like a King Kong kind of build, then you're going to burn more calories because it's harder to move your body type. So have you ever done a few of the same workouts, for example, and then thought, this is actually getting easier than it used to be? Obviously, for one, your body's becoming more efficient, and that efficiency may come about because you are now carrying less load to complete the exercise or the workout. So men should try and maximize load generally due to using being type 2 dominant. We work well with explosive exercises and play into our strengths. So for males, this means increasing muscle mass can be very beneficial in speeding up metabolic rate and calorie burning. In a leg session, for example, I can burn up to like 600, 700 calories and get the full reward from progressive overload and lifting, i.e. getting bigger. So this is a win-win, what I call 2 birds, 1 stone, the cream de la creme. But due to us also having more visceral fat, it is or can be even more important to look after our cardiovascular fitness and make sure we're doing some form of cardio consistently and not just being a big meathead or a gym bro. So that's why, for example, for me, I've been doing a lot more running than what I usually would, just because I have more time to do so. So how do these differences in physiology make it different with burning fat or losing weight? So women are made to reproduce pretty much. Pregnancy, to hold more fat. This is why it's bad to cut out or cut low in calories as men, as we'll suffer from menorrhea at some point if you continue to be in a deficit for a long period of time. But this can also be affected by extreme levels of body fat and overtraining. So that's why we've got to be careful when I was discussing before around training around the menstrual cycle, and make sure that you are implementing certain weeks where you are lifting your calories up just to make sure that you're looking after your hormones and also your body. We've got to also remember that a female's leptin levels, which is kind of like our hunger hormones, will drop quicker than males. So women will eat and not feel as full as males. So pretty much you're fighting a tougher battle as a female, just to make things a little bit more difficult. The other thing you've got to contend with is the week of, like we were discussing before, PMS and the luteal phase is also going to be a big factor to consider. I believe during this phase, women should not be looking to drop, but more at maintenance and dropping the foot off the pedal a little bit due to the risk of injury and fatigue, etc. And the metabolic rate in some women is up to 10% higher in this phase. So moving on, muscle mass and metabolic rate differences. Muscle uses a lot more energy than fat while at rest. So the more muscle you can hold, then the more your metabolic weight will speed up. So obviously it's advantageous to do some weight training, lift heavy, build some muscle, lift up heavy shit, put it down. When it comes to nutrition, I'm briefly going to breeze over this. So calorie deficits, the amount of food is the difference here, not the food choices. So how you choose to create a deficit and how much you lose is completely up to you, just as long as you stick to those parameters within your diet. Now, again, if you're not sure, sort of plug what your calories should be at. I'll include in the description box the link to my calorie calculator, which you can click on and add in all your stats to work out what your calories should be for you to be in a calorie deficit. You're welcome. Now, when it comes to training, women will need to do more, like discussed before. So, like I said, when your boyfriend is going home from the gym, you may need to stay a little longer in order to get the most out of your training, or if you want to be able to burn as much as him, or lift as much as him, or get as much volume in there, or maximize results, you, as a female, you will need to be in the gym longer than a male will be. It's just unfortunate, or fortunate, depending on which way you look at it. Now, for example, with me and Lucy, what we tend to do is we train very similar, we weight train very similar, but for me, I'll usually be the one who's got to do a bit more cardio in order to get my body fat percentages down. And when we're eating foods, again, we eat very, very similar food groups. We pretty much eat exactly the same. It's just that I will eat a little bit more or higher calories due to those reasons that I've just brushed over. Again, it doesn't come down to food sources that you have to differ as a male or female. And when we go out at the weekend, we pretty much go to the restaurant and we'll order the exact same stuff. Yeah, pretty sad. But we just enjoy the same things. And again, when it comes to those weekends, when we have those periods where calories are up a little bit, it doesn't massively, drastically matter as long as you are aware of where you're up to for your total weekly calories. So on average, a little stat, on average, women have 6 to 11% more body fat than men. So studies show that estrogen reduces a woman's ability to burn energy after eating, resulting in more fat being stored around the body. The likely reason is to prime women for childbearing again. So a conclusion now, just wrapping up the video, because you've been listening to me ramble on for long enough. Health benefits when we look at losing body fat is, how does it affect our health? How does it affect us mentally? What makes us happy? How long have we been in a deficit for? All these questions are important when looking at fat loss and are something you should be asking yourself throughout a fat loss phase. If at the end of the day, you're doing this to be happier, but the process is making you unhappy with what would be, it's wise to rethink or just sack it off altogether and work on other goals that give you more satisfaction and happiness. As we will always have more fat to lose, so don't stress about it. There's always going to be a point, like I get to a point with my dieting and with my fat loss where I am pretty lean, but I've still got lower back fat. And it's not something that I want to stress about, because you're always going to have that never-ending horizon, always going to be that place where you're never happy, even when you set a goal. So it's best to just look at it as a blank slate. You've got a starting point as a male or female, and each day you're going to put a mark of chalk on that blackboard and get a little bit closer to where you want to be. Not always looking from A to B and seeing B as happy, because it means all through the process you're never going to be happy, which is what our end goal should be. So you've got to really start to enjoy the process and understand these ways and means of losing body fat as a male or a female, implement them into routine, but also make sure that you're happy doing so. Just to finish off, of course, you can't spot reduce fat. I'm not going to go into this one too heavy. The simple answer to it is no, that you can't. We all hold fat in different areas due to our genetic makeup, where some of us may hold more fat, others will hold none. So if you say, look at Lucy's abdomen, she's absolutely diced to the bone. So don't get too caught up on it. Many products will claim to help spot reduce fat. For example, certain devices try to eliminate fat by electrically stimulating muscles or making you piss out fat. Don't believe the hype, mate, trust me. If it sounds too good to be true, it probably is, especially when someone is trying to sell you something and make a quick quid on you. So my advice would be enjoy deadlifting heavy when we can go back to the gym. Have more sex, because even that expends calories. Walk more, eat well, and don't get caught up on the little things, because they will just turn into being unhappy and having a shit life. So if you enjoyed this one, guys, and it was helpful, then please give it a like and a massive thumbs up. And obviously, if this is your first time visiting my channel, then please drop down and hit that subscribe button to make sure that you are in with a chance of seeing all my future videos and the shit that I'm getting up to. Catch you on the next one, guys. Bye.